Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday celebration. My name is Richard, and hope everything is well today. And we're going to be talking and continuing our journey on the untethered soul. For the last couple of weeks, we've covered awakening consciousness. We've covered experiencing energy and freeing yourself. And today we will jump into going beyond. And Our service today will take on a lot of those. You'll see a little bit difference in our service today as we're going to tackle moving into the mind, letting go, and opening ourselves up to be able to move beyond. So with that, let's go ahead and begin with our daily word. And our daily word for today is faith. And our affirmation: with faith, nothing is impossible for me. I want you to let that resonate with yourself. With faith, nothing is impossible for me. With gratitude, I use my faith to trust in the good that is always present, even when it is not yet manifested. And as I pray with faith, I discern the truth that always endures through even the most difficult circumstances. As I concentrate on harmony and love, all thoughts of lack, limitation, and discord simply dissolve. As I speak with faith, I use positive words to express my belief in myself and others as divine beings. As I act with faith, I access deep, lasting strength and fortitude that help me surmount any changes. Inspired by my faith, I move forward with confidence, and nothing is impossible for me. And our biblical scripture is from Matthew 17:20. If you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say this to the mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible with you. So with that, we take faith, we move in faith, and our journey continues as we move in faith, as we start to talk about the opening of our center this week and stuff. And we'll talk about that more during the announcements. And we move in faith as we move through this book and through our own lives. So with that, if you are here today, we do ask that you go ahead and comment in our comment fields. Let us know that you're here so that we can thank you for being here on the show later, and as well as share this, like this, and if you're on Facebook, check in. Just let people know that you're here with us this Sunday and watching our live stream. So let's begin by going to our first song today.
Caught up in a cloud of self-defeat, just going through the motions again, wondering when my ship was coming in. Inside a voice said, what's bringing you down? You convince yourself there's no way out. Are you looking for someone to blame? Blind to the part you play in this game. You say you want a better life, you better believe it. Good fortune on your side, you better believe it. A love that fills you up inside, makes you feel alive. If you wanna change, start with your mind. You better believe fortune on your side. You say you want a better life, you better believe it. Good fortune on your side, you better believe it. I love that fills you up inside, makes you feel alive. If you wanna change, start with your mind. If you wanna change, start with your mind. If you wanna change, start with your mind. Oh, you better believe it. You just gotta believe it. Oh, yeah.
Hope you like the song. And it's just as they said, if we really truly want to make a change in our lives, we definitely need to believe it. So with that, today I wanted to go through a few affirmations. So our inspiring thought for the day comes from Wayne Dyer. The only limits you have are the limits you believe. If you've ever done any work with Wayne Dyer, he was a big believer in love and taking things from certain perspectives of knowing you already had it, which resonates with our unity beliefs. So if you have limits in your lives, then it's the limits that you believe in. And today and throughout this book and throughout our next book, we'll be talking about working with those limits and taking them to the next level. Our abundance affirmation for the day comes from Dr. Catherine Ponder, and it is, I now begin to think about all the ways that I can claim my unlimited new good, both inwardly and outwardly. As I do so, I change and improve my world. We talk about perspective. We talk about when we change the inner part of us, we then outside of us begin to see the world differently. We want the world to change. We need to be the change. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And this is something we need to continue to remember, that we are responsible only for the things that we do and what we say. But as many of our teachers have told us, if you sweep in front of your house and everybody does the same, sooner or later the world will be clean. So let's just keep that in mind. And as always, our affirmation of faith is, there is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotent. And we'll go ahead and move to our next song, and then we'll be going into a meditation.
I stand alone. I close my eyes and wait against the wind, steady and strong. I am unmoved, for I am not afraid. I stand and wait, for I know how to wait. I'm holding on, for when my moment comes, like the phoenix I'll rise when it comes beneath this veil of who I seem to be. Truth is the staff I lean upon. I've come to claim what has been promised me, and give my heart that was a broken heart a brand new dawn. For when my moment comes, when my moment comes, like the phoenix I'll rise when it comes, like a seal upon my heart, my sacred destiny, a brand new start. For when my moment comes, when my moment comes, like the phoenix I'll arise. When it comes, like the phoenix I'll arise. When it comes.
And let us take and enjoy that music and that moment and how it made you feel. And just, if you feel so moved, close your eyes. And let's just take a centering breath just here in this moment, in this time, knowing that this is the moment that counts, this and only the moment. Let's take another deep breath in. And as we breathe out, let's release any worries of yesterday. Take another deep breath in. And any anxieties you may have of tomorrow, just let it go and just be present here and now. Let's take a third breath in. And on this third breath, let's take it in and let's pause as we feel our body rise. And as we release, let's just sink into our chairs and just relax, allowing gravity to take its pull. And allowing our body just to allow everything to melt away and just know that we are in the presence of this allness, this goodness, this time and place where all is well. And as we continue to work on ourselves and work on release, I want to take you through a 3-step meditation where we will begin by working on our inner child, our subconscious, our heart, whatever you want to term it. And let's place our hand on our heart. And let's just take a deep breath in. And as we release it, let's just say, I am safe. And let's just do this a few more times. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And let's just begin to feel that feeling of safety just rolling over us as we allow our inner mantra to relax everything, to remove that flight or fight, and just know that we're safe in this moment. If you need to do a few more, let's go ahead and do 3 more. I am safe. I am safe. I am safe. And as we feel that calm wash over us, let's begin to see our heart space begin to glow with the light. It could be white, it could be yellow, whatever it's bright for you and makes you feel safe and comfortable in this moment. And as we breathe into the light, we begin to see that light rise. As it rises from your heart chakra, through your throat chakra, third eye, and out the crown, and into the heavens, into the ethers. And we just see the light pushing upward. And as we continue to breathe, we see that same light begin to continue down through our chakras into Mother Earth, into Gaia. And we feel centered in this moment as we connect this energy from the ethers through us into Earth and feel the energy pulsate in and up and down and just circulate. And as we continue to breathe, we see the light beam expand till it begins to expand outwardly from our body, and we see our body engulfed in this light. And we feel love, we feel energy, and we feel safe. In this moment, let's begin to speak to our inner child. Let us begin to reprogram and cleanse the data in our subconscious. Let us begin to clear our heart of anything that is not serving us. And let us use I am statements. And you know what you need. I am enough. I am confident. I am strong. And let us continue this for the next 5 breaths and just fill in that blank for whatever it is that you need today. And let's just take a few breaths in the silence and just pause in there and listen for anything that may come to you. As we begin to return to this place and time, we affirm and we know that we are part of this essence, this substance, as Reverend Eric Butterworth always tells us, that we are the potters that create. We visualize it, we believe it. Our master teacher told us, ask and it shall be given. So we know that today we've done some cleaning. We've reprogrammed that part of us that may have been working from a point of lack, a point of fear, a point of not knowing. And we know when we are, and we take action. And we end this as being grateful for all of that's already there and ready to come. And as always, we seek first the kingdom and all things shall be added. And we are so grateful for that. And let us take one last breath. And out the out breath, let's just affirm this with, and so it is. Amen. Gently open your eyes, and we will move on to our next song and then on to our speaker for today.
Be still, my soul, and hear the voice within to calm my fears, forgive my heart, resolve my restless thoughts and wandering mind, and make all worry and sorrow cease. Reveal only good intentions, so I may soon feel a lasting peace. And trust that Spirit guides me now and always as it beckons me. Release, release. Awake, be true, my soul within me, my sacred place, my evergreen. Remove illusions of control that test my life and help me to be free. Revive every joyful essence and restore my inner peace, and bring me to the sacred space of healing as it calls me to release.
Good morning, Unity. It is a pleasure to be with you again and continue our journey through the book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. We've come to the part of our study of the book where it gets a little deep. There's some amazing concepts throughout this whole book, and I'd like to recap a little bit before we get going into the meat of today's message. So as you know, in our previous discussions, we've discovered that there's a noisy roommate that's in our heads that wants to run the show of our lives. And we discover this roommate by taking time to be still and quiet and just observe the processes of the mind. The roommate is not our true identity, but who are we? Who are you? We are pure consciousness, right? Infinite energy, and energy is meant to move and flow. However, we tend to block this flow and movement by fixating on or avoiding pain. When avoiding pain becomes our life focus, guess what? We've actually become controlled by it. All attempts to remain in our comfort zone just keep us finite, never realizing our infinite potential. When we begin to spiritually awaken, we realize that we're in a cage of our own making, and the cage is fear of pain or discomfort. But we must go beyond. We must face our pain and fear and address our inner wounds. Otherwise, we remain attached to the wounds, and the wounds remain attached to us. Today, we're going to discuss going beyond our limitations of fear and comfort and even death. The first step is taking down the walls. Hopefully, you've been practicing noticing that noisy roommate in your head, right? And finding peace in the notion that you do not have to put up with the constant chatter. As we practice sitting deeply in the seat of the observer, the noise quiets down, maybe even to the point that we begin to truly know that we are completely independent of what we are observing. As we begin to understand that thoughts, emotions, and sensory objects are simply energies that are passing through our consciousness, it is reasonable to consider that we could break free of these disturbances altogether. So let's look at that and ask ourselves the question, how did infinite consciousness become bound to a limited sense of personal self to begin with? Well, in our book, in chapter 11, the author shares a great allegory to help us understand the building of these walls. So I'm going to read some of this directly from the book, just so you get a sense of the story. Imagine you found yourself in the midst of an open field where the sun was always shining. It was a beautiful place of great light and great openness, and it was so nice that you decided to live there. So you bought the land, and right in the middle of the enormous field, you decided to build a house. You put down a solid foundation because you wanted the house to be very strong and to last a long time. And you put a lot of thought into the design. To make the house ecologically sound, you decided to put in very few windows and to build a roof with lots of overhang. So after you put in the windows and the house was complete, you realized that a lot of heat still came in. So you installed some high quality shutters, protective shutters over the windows to block out that sunshine. So the house could be locked down for security purposes as well. It was a very large house that could store enough supplies to allow for complete self-sufficiency. You even built separate quarters for a quiet acquaintance who would keep the house clean and leave you to be in solitude. And solitude it would be, since your romantic quest included a commitment to no phones, radios, televisions, or internet connections, right? You've built this little utopia in the middle of this idealistic field. Your house was finally finished, and you were excited to be living there. You loved the openness of the field and all the light and beauty of nature, but most of all, you were kind of enamored with the house itself. You'd put your heart and soul into every aspect of the design, and it showed it was truly you. In fact, over time, between your infatuation with the house and your growing discomfort with all the strange sights and sounds outside, you started spending more time indoors. And that's fine, because being a city person, it was pretty scary living so far out of reach in total isolation. But you were committed to making it on your own. So you gradually became accustomed to living safely within the confines of the house and happily went about your business of reading and writing like you always wanted to do. Ironically, you found your house so comfortable, so enjoyable and safe that you stopped thinking about the outside altogether. As a matter of fact, you'd installed modern full spectrum lighting, so you really didn't even need the outside sun. And so you went on day and day, and your sense of inner sanctum was supported by the fact that when the shutters and blinds were locked in place, they blended like paintings on the walls, and you never even considered risking going outside to unlock them. They were so well made that when the lights were off, it was absolutely pitch black. But since you were accustomed to never turning off the lights, you didn't notice this until one day a bulb burned out. And gradually, all the bulbs started burning out. And you realized that you hadn't planned for replacements for these specialty bulbs, and you had no replacements. This meant that once the final light failed, you were left to find your way around the house in absolute darkness. So from that point forward, the only light you had was a few emergency candles that you kept around the house. And eventually, the stress of living in this darkness took its toll on your health, both physically and mentally. And with time, the very memory of the beautiful sunlit field began to fade from your mind, never to return again. You became very concerned about keeping the house lit. And the only light you knew about was the light you created in the darkness with your precious candles. And it became pretty lonely in there. You were cut off from everything, and the only comfort you felt was the sense of protection the house afforded you. And then one day, the housekeeper found some flashlights down in the basement that could be lit up by shaking the flashlights. They were simply powered by shaking them. And anyway, so you started living with this artificial light that was created by shaking flashlights to generate electricity. Anyway, eventually you found your way down into a book. You found a book in your library, and it interested you because it talked about the natural radiant light that exists outside, right? It even spoke of bathing in that light. But it was talking about more light than you could ever imagine without anyone having to do anything to create it. And this was confusing to you because you'd forgotten what the outside was like. After all, the only light you knew was about the artificial light from the candles and flashlights. How could you make that much light and keep it going? When you continued reading this seemingly mystical book, it spoke of what it was like to actually walk around in this natural light. And it seemed to be describing a self-luminous, omnipresent light that shines everywhere all at once. It was a light that falls on everything constantly and evenly. Though you had no frame of reference for understanding this, it touched something deep inside of you. All right, so this analogy of life inside this house is perfect fit for our predicament, right? We live in this house that we've built up all around us. And what is this house made of? The walls are made of your psyche, or your personal sense of self, also called ego. It is all your past experiences, thoughts, emotions, concepts, views, opinions, beliefs, and hopes and dreams that you have collected all around yourself. If you want to see how restrictive your walls are, just start walking toward them. A great example that comes from the book is, say you've got an emotional fear of heights. And let's say that when you were young, you fell off of a ladder and the impression stayed with you. Well, that is one of your walls, the walls of your house, your psyche. If you doubt that it's a wall, try walking through it. Let's see you walk through it. Let's say something happens that activates these old feelings of fear and you decide to walk right toward it. The closer you get, the more you will have the urge to pull back. That which you collected from your past forms a boundary that you intuitively want to avoid. Seems natural, right? We avoid running into walls. But because we avoid running into walls, they become the boundaries of our awareness. We don't approach them, so we don't know what is on the other side. When we approach these barriers in our mind, feelings of fear rise up. Our ancestors literally feared falling off of the edge of the earth because they thought that the earth was a flat disk, right? When we approach a wall that has been blocking out light from our lives, sometimes even greater fears arise. You know how some mystics have talked about the dark night of the soul, how you must go through the darkest night to get to the infinite light? Well, this darkness is really just the blockage of light. We must go past these walls. Many years ago, Plato offered a great allegory of this condition of humankind in his allegory called the cave. And he said, imagine a cave in which there are 3 prisoners. The prisoners are tied to some rocks, their arms and legs are bound, and their head is tied so that they cannot look at anything but the stone wall in front of them. These prisoners have been there since birth and have never been outside the cave. Behind the prisoners is a fire, and between them is a raised walkway. People outside the cave walk along this walkway carrying things on their heads, including animals, plants, wood, and stone. So imagine that you're one of those prisoners. You cannot look at anything behind you or to the side of you. You must look at the wall in front of you. When the people walk along the pathway, you can see shadows of the objects they are carrying cast onto the wall. If you had never seen the real objects before, you would believe the shadows of objects were real. Plato suggests that the prisoners would begin a game of guessing which shadow would appear next. If one of the prisoners were to guess correctly, the others would praise him as clever and say that he was a master of nature. One of the prisoners finally one day escaped from their bindings and left the cave. He is shocked at the world he discovers outside of the cave and does not believe it can be real. As he becomes used to his new surroundings, he realizes that his former view of reality was wrong. He begins to understand his new world and sees that the sun is the source of life and goes on an intellectual journey where he discovers beauty and meaning. And he sees that his former life and the guessing game they played is useless. So the prisoner returned to the cave because he wanted to tell his fellow captors, right? They do not believe him. As a matter of fact, they threaten to kill him if he tries to set them free. And the fear is real, friends. So maybe you want to remain in the cave and continue to play the game. There's no shame in that. I just asked you to push your boundaries, even if you're not ready to knock down your walls. This might take another lifetime or two, and that's okay. What else are you going to do with eternity? For everyone else, let's go. Let's go far, far beyond and let go of false solidity. It starts with the question, who am I? You know, there was a modern man named Ulrich who one night in 1977, at the age of 29, after having suffered from long periods of depression, says he experienced an inner transformation. That night, he awakened from his sleep, suffering from feelings of severe depression that were almost unbearable. But then he experienced a life-changing epiphany. Recounting the experience, he says, I couldn't live with myself any longer. And in this, a question arose without an answer. Who is the I that cannot live with the self? What is the self? I felt drawn into a void. I didn't know at the time that what really happened was the mind-made self with its heaviness, its problems, that lives between the unsatisfying past and the fearful future collapsed. It dissolved. The next morning I woke up and everything was so peaceful. The peace was there because there was no self, just a sense of presence or beingness, just observing and watching. So this man recalls going out for a walk the next morning in London and finding that everything was miraculously and deeply peaceful, even the traffic. And this feeling continued, and he began to feel a strong underlying sense of peace in any situation. He dropped out of school where he was studying to get his doctorate. And for a period of about 2 years, he spent his time sitting on park benches and spending much of his time in a state of deep bliss. He would watch the world go by. He stayed with friends. He stayed in a Buddhist monastery, or sometimes just slept outdoors. And his family thought him irresponsible and even insane. Now, you may know this man by another name because he changed his name from Ulrich to Eckhart Tolle. So that's the story of his inquiry into the who am I. So what I'm asking is for you to go inside yourself, be still and quiet, and ask, who am I? When the emotions and thoughts and sensory objects arise, ask, who am I? And even, you might ask, who is asking, who am I? Who is this observer behind everything? Now, I found that asking why is not a very helpful line of inquiry. The mind is great at analyzing and answering the whys of life, and it rushes in to provide meaning and rationalizations. But investigating who tends to arrest the mind. The mind doesn't know. But I'll let you in on a secret. The mind is curious too. In fact, you can harness the mind's sensory powers in this process. Ask the mind to help observe. Ask the mind to set an alarm and clear space in the daily schedule for meditation and observation time. Ask the mind to look for signs and synchronicities in the world around you. Co-opt the mind into being like a bird watcher, right? Sitting quietly and listening and observing. If you practice this patiently and often, the mind will quiet its chatter. But we must be willing to let go. But we must be willing to let our false solidity dissolve, right? That's what we're looking at things that we think are real and we think are solid. We must be willing to let the false solidity dissolve. Remember those walls that we built to give us boundaries and protection from discomfort and pain? Remember all the stories and emotions and concepts and beliefs that we accumulated to use to build our sense of self? We must be willing to let them dissolve. We must sit in observation without clinging to meaning and concepts and sensory inputs. Just as we sit in a dark, cold movie theater and lose ourselves in the story, right, up on the screen. We do this in life too by narrowly concentrating on certain thought objects. And another great example of this is a fish, right? Just as a fish can pass through water but not through ice, because ice is concentrated water, right? So mental and emotional energy patterns that have become fixed, when they encounter concentrated consciousness, so that we cannot move through it, just like the fish can't move through ice, even though it's water. Concentrating on some thought objects more than others creates a type of attachment or clinging. It's like all of this is going around, right? And instead of being the neutral observer, right, we're saying, I want that one, and I'm going to pay attention to that one, and I'm going to focus in here on this one, right? And these become the building blocks of the psyche and boundaries and blocks to the infinite self. So stated another way, we try to hold consistent thoughts and concepts in our mind. I'm a man. I'm of a certain age, and I believe these things. We literally define ourselves based on what we believe. I believe in God, or I don't believe in God. I believe in peace, or I believe in survival of the fittest. Pardon me. I believe in socialism. I believe in capitalism. We take these thoughts and make a structure out of them. We are attempting to create a sense of stability or steadiness on the inside, but it is false. You are not any of these things, and yet you are all of them. We can only dissolve these false structures by going beyond our limited concepts of self and time and space. We become aware that there is no solidity and become comfortable with that. And that takes practice. As each now moment unfolds, we must allow it, just as it is. Releasing concepts, hopes, dreams, beliefs, and security. Let each moment come, and the next, and the next. This is what has always been happening. And by the way, without your control. Did you know that? Because this is transformative, right? Is realizing that we were never in control of any of this anyway. All we chose to do was to focus on this thing, focus on that thing, grasp a hold of that thing, and build up our boundaries and say, this is reality. We transform this by being the observer, the witness, without commentary, without struggle, without judgment, without clinging to one outcome or another. So, big stuff. And I don't blame you if you don't receive this message today, because there are days that I am in doubt of this message myself. And that's okay. All I ask is that you search it out. Search it out and search it out. Never take my word for anything. And if you find yourself resisting something, say this message, right? Then you know that you've encountered a boundary. Then you know where to start pushing and looking for a wall, and start wondering what's beyond this wall. That's my boundary. That's my resistance. So here's your homework. Homework this week is to spend 5 minutes every day quietly contemplating, who am I? Who am I? And even asking, who is it that is asking, who am I? So that is our message for today. And I am ever grateful for all of you for tuning in, whether it's live or in the recordings. I hope that you are blessed by it. I also hope and pray to see as many of you as possible live and in person as we reopen our center next week. And what a joyous reunion it will be. God bless you all, and much love to you all.
In everything we do, there is no everything that God is not. There is no spot. There's no spot. God is not. God is not. Yeah, there is no spot. There's no spot. It's in the air. There's no spot. Everywhere. God is not. It's no spot. No, no, no. God is not. There is no spot. Is no spot. Yeah, there is no spot. There's no spot. God is not. God is not. There is no spot where God is not. He's not. There's no spot. God is not. There's no spot. God is not. There's no spot. God is not. There's no spot.
As always, a wonderful talk, powerful talk, lots on it. And again, this is why we encourage you to get the books, because we want you to follow along and find those notes in there in between our talks that will help you build your life. I shared with Lee earlier that, you know, there are other churches that do exactly the same thing, but they form small study groups so that they can take it to the next level. And this is a book that truly dives into the intellect, dives into our changing. So if you haven't gotten the book, get it. It's an easy read, but it is powerful. Next week, I will be the speaker, and we will be talking about living life. And even that will dive into a lot of big issues and titles that we deal with in life. So you definitely want to have the book. And again, get it on Kindle, get it in paperback, doesn't matter. I like my Kindle. I can do notes electronically. Some people like regular books because they can highlight. So either way, get it done. And like I said, I'll be speaking next week on living life, and it's the last section of the book. So let's go ahead and go to our announcements real quick. And as always, if you feel moved to contribute and help with the ministry, there are 3 ways you can do that. First way at the top you'll see is our contribute button on the website. Click on that and you'll be able to offer your love offerings or tithe either way. The second screen is our YouTube channel. That small P in the corner is our PayPal. Please use that. If not, feel free to mail in your tithes and offerings to our office, and our wonderful office staff will take care of that for you. And as Lee alluded to, next week we will be looking at returning to the center, so you'll be able to give in time. And speaking of that, we will be opening up October 4th. And again, we do have a few reopening guidelines that we do want to follow. And again, we are excited about getting together and seeing each other. And I've heard some people say, well, you know, I'm kind of used to this whole, you know, I can stay home in my PJs and my bunny slippers and watch this, and I don't need to be there. As someone who has spoken for over close to 15 plus years in front of training groups and stuff, the energy is different when you're together. So don't let that deter you. I mean, again, stay safe. If you don't feel comfortable coming, we still will be going live on both Facebook and YouTube. But if you do, like me, want to be in front of people and feel that energy and that prayerful energy that happens during our services, then please come on down and enjoy the service. But again, we do have a few rules here. If you're sick or living with someone who's sick or quarantined, again, we don't want you to take chances, nor do we want to bring that into the service. So please stay home. We will only be using the front entrance, which is on Grand Street. And you'll notice the 2 signs, which is the drop-off point. And if you happen to be parking in the back, you will see the small trail that will take you to the front. So we'll only be using that. So Harmony Hall and the kitchen will not be used at all. We ask that you wear a mask and practice social distancing. Again, family groups that, come in together, of course, can sit together. But otherwise, we ask that you social distance. We ask everyone to sign an attendance log to facilitate contact tracing. So pretty much if something happens, we want to make sure that we know who was there those days. Extra masks and hand sanitizers will be there and available for you. Prior to you being there, the pews and doorknobs will have been disinfected. And again, there will be no separate children's class. So if you bring your children with you, they will be sitting in the sanctuary with us. And we'll be doing, as some churches call it, intergenerational service. So, as always, I'm grateful for everyone who joins us here. Again, Lee for the talk today, Tanya for joining us this morning, Teresa. I see that Sherry Kim and Michael actually joined us today. And if you're joining us later via recording, we are so grateful for all of you and your help with our ministry and just joining us for all that we do and all that we try to do outside of here. As Lee said, it is about finding who we are, finding that journey, and knowing that the responsibility falls on us to be the best we are, because our stories are not ours. Our stories belong to the people we encounter and help them through things. So as we come to this part of the service, we always talk about practicing the law of giving and receiving. So together, let's quickly just a quick prayer of gratitude. Let us just center into this moment, knowing that we are grateful for all. We're grateful for all of you who are joining us here today live and who are joining us later via recording. And know that we hope that we've blessed you in some way and inspired you to move to that next level, because the world is waiting for your individual gifts. And we know that we are so grateful, and our master teacher always taught us that before he performed any miracles, he gave gratitude to the Father, as we give gratitude today for the gifts that are already given to us in love and with the intent of helping us reach more people. With that being said, I ask you to grab your gifts in your hands, whether it's virtual, whether it's physical, or whether it is just the love that you are expressing with us today, and let us bless it by saying, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And since we are going into our center next week, I figured rather than just talk about it, let us join in and sing together, "Let There Be Peace on Earth."
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as freedom, family all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Now peace begins with me. Yes, this is the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment, live each moment, peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins with me.
And as always, we end with our prayer of protection. So together, the light of God surrounds you, and I am light. The love of God enfolds you, and I am love. The power of God protects you. I am power. The presence of God watches over you, and I am presence. And wherever we are, God is, and I am divine. And we affirm it with a "so it is." So again, I hope to see most of you next week. If not, we'll see each other live. And just remember the guidelines, and we're going in through the front door. So with that, I thank you again, and we'll see each other next week.